Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something most people never learn in their entire lifetime. If you listen to everybody, you'll end up being nobody. The fastest way to lose yourself is to try to please everyone around you. Everybody got an opinion. Everybody got something to say about your life, your dreams, your pace, your mistakes. But here's the truth. Most of those people ain't qualified to give you advice in the first place. You have to learn how to ignore people. And I don't mean out of anger, and I don't mean out of hate. I mean out of self-respect. Because if you keep allowing outside noise to control your inside peace, you'll never move forward. You'll always be stuck explaining yourself, shrinking yourself, doubting yourself. See, when God gave you your vision, He didn't call a meeting. He didn't ask your friends, your family, or the people who doubt you for permission. That dream was given to you. So why are you letting people who don't see it decide how valuable you are? Let me tell you something about valuing yourself. It's not loud. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't beg for approval. Valuing yourself means you stop chasing validation and start standing on belief. You don't argue with doubters. You outgrow them. You don't explain your moves. You let your results do the talking. People will misunderstand you when you change. People will get uncomfortable when you stop settling. People will call you selfish when you finally put yourself first. But listen to me, every successful person you admire had to disappoint somebody to become who they were meant to be. You cannot carry everybody with you into your next level. Some people are only meant to know the old version of you, and that's okay. Growth requires separation. Elevation requires isolation. Sometimes you got to walk alone so you can hear God clearly. Stop letting rejection define you. Rejection is not a sign that you're not enough. It's proof that you don't belong where you're trying to fit. When one door closes, don't stand there crying. Turn around. There's another door opening that matches your value. The moment you truly value yourself, you stop accepting disrespect, excuses, and low standards. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop begging for attention. And something powerful happens. The world starts treating you differently because you decided to treat yourself differently first. So ignore the noise. Ignore the doubt. Ignore the people who only show up to remind you of your past. Focus on becoming disciplined, focused, and consistent. Because when you know your worth, no one can make you feel worthless. The moment you stop seeking validation from people who don't know your worth, your life starts to change. Most people don't fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because they hand over control of their confidence to opinions that were never meant to guide them. From a young age, we're trained to look outside ourselves for approval, family approval, social approval, applause, likes, recognition. And before you know it, you're making decisions based on how others might react instead of what you know is right for you. That's a dangerous way to live because the people you're trying to impress aren't the ones who have to live with the consequences of your choices. Here's the truth. People judge from the outside, but they don't carry your responsibility. They don't feel your pressure. They don't lose sleep over your dreams. They don't wake up with your fears or your hopes. Yet somehow, we give their opinions more weight than our own instincts. You can't do that and still expect to grow. Every time you ask someone else to validate your vision, you shrink your belief just a little bit, and after a while, you don't even trust yourself anymore. You wait for permission to move, to try to change. I'm not talking about vice or speaking from their limitations, not your potential. They're telling you what didn't work for them, not what won't work for you. They see the world through their failures, their fears, their comfort zones. When they say, be realistic, what they really mean is, stay where I'm comfortable seeing you. If you're not careful, you'll let people who never took a risk convince you that your dream is too big. Seeking validation is exhausting because it never ends. There's always another opinion, another critic, another voice telling you to slow down, calm down, or settle. And the moment you change direction to please one group, you upset another. You will never win that game. The only way to regain peace is to stop playing it all together and decide that your value does not need a vote. When you stop chasing approval, you gain clarity. You start making decisions faster because you're no longer polling the room. You stop explaining yourself to people who already decided not to understand you. You realize that silence can be powerful, that moving quietly is sometimes the smartest move you can make. Not everyone deserves access to your plans, especially ones who only show up to question them. Self-validation doesn't mean you think you're better than others. It means you finally respect yourself enough to listen to your own voice. It means you acknowledge your effort even when nobody claps. It means you keep going on days when encouragement is nowhere to be found. That's where real confidence is built, not in compliments, but in commitment. Once you stop seeking validation, rejection loses its power. You no longer see no as a personal attack, you see it as redirection. You stop trying to fit into spaces that were never designed for you. You understand that not being accepted everywhere doesn't make you unworthy. It just means you're different. Different was never meant to be comfortable. When you validate yourself, you become dangerous in the best way. You're not easily shaken. You're not easily distracted. You don't quit just because someone doubts you. You know who you are, what you bring to the table, and what you're working toward. And that kind of inner certainty doesn't come from outside voices. It comes from deciding that your belief in yourself is enough. Ignoring negativity is not arrogance. It is self-respect. A lot of people confuse the two because they've never learned how to protect their energy. They think that if you don't respond to every comment, every criticism, every opinion thrown your way, you're acting superior. But the truth is, responding to everything is a sign of insecurity, not strength. When you know who you are and where you're going, you don't feel the need to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Negativity is everywhere. It shows up in casual jokes, in backhanded compliments, in concerned advice that's really just doubt in disguise. And if you're not careful, it slowly seeps into your thinking. You start replaying words that were spoken in moments of jealousy, fear, or ignorance. You start questioning decisions you once felt confident about. Not because you were wrong, but because you allowed too many outside voices to rent space in your mind for free. Here's something you have to understand. Not every comment deserves a response, and not every opinion deserves your attention. Silence is not weakness. Silence is discipline. It's the ability to say, I don't need to prove anything to you. When you argue with negativity, you give it importance. When you explain yourself to critics, you elevate their voice to the same level as your purpose. And the longer you stay in that space, the more drained you become. Self-respect is choosing peace over chaos. It's deciding that your time and energy are too valuable to be spent fighting battles that don't move you forward. People who do more than you rarely have time to criticize you. Most negativity comes from people who are stuck, frustrated, or afraid to take the risks you're taking. They project their fear onto your ambition and then label it realism. Ignoring negativity doesn't mean you're unaware. It means you're selective. You listen for wisdom, not noise. You learn to tell the difference between constructive feedback and destructive commentary. Constructive feedback challenges you to grow. Destructive commentary only tries to make you feel smaller. One helps you elevate. The other tries to pull you down to a level where excuses feel comfortable. There will be moments when people test your patience. They'll question your choices, doubt your timing, and criticize your progress. Sometimes they'll do it publicly, hoping to get a reaction out of you. But reacting emotionally only proves that their words landed. The strongest response is continued progress. Nothing silences negativity like consistency. When you keep showing up, keep improving, and keep moving forward, arguments become unnecessary. Ignoring negativity also teaches you emotional maturity. You stop letting your mood be controlled by someone else's words. You stop giving strangers the power to ruin your day. You realize that peace is an inside job, not something the world hands you. And once you master that, you become harder to manipulate and harder to derail. When you choose self-respect, you don't become cold. You become focused. You still care, but you care about the right things. You invest your energy into growth, discipline, and purpose instead of distractions. And over time, people notice. Not because you argued back, but because you didn't have to. Your value is not defined by opinions, likes, or applause, no matter how convincing they may seem in the moment. In today's world, it's easy to believe that attention equals worth. Numbers are visible, feedback is instant, and comparison is constant. If you're not careful, you start measuring your importance by how many people notice you instead of how deeply you believe in yourself. That's a trap because applause is temporary and opinions change faster than the weather. People will celebrate you when doing what they approve of and criticize you the moment you step outside their expectations. If your confidence rises and falls based on that reaction, you'll live on an emotional roller coaster. One day you'll feel on top of the world, and the next you'll question everything about yourself. That's not confidence, that's dependency. Real value doesn't need a crowd to exist. It's there whether anyone sees it or not. Applause feels good, but it can also become addictive. When you get used to being praised, you start performing instead of progressing. You choose what looks good instead of what actually grows you. You avoid difficult paths because they don't get immediate recognition. And slowly, without realizing it, you trade long-term purpose for short-term approval. That's how people get stuck living a life that looks successful but feels empty. Opinions are even more dangerous because they often come without responsibility. Someone can judge your effort, your pace, or your choices in a few seconds without understanding your journey. They don't see the nights you stayed up, the sacrifices you made, or the battles you fought quietly. Yet their words can still linger if you let them. The problem isn't that people talk, it's that we listen too much. When you stop attaching your worth to outside reactions, you gain emotional stability. You stop panicking when praise disappears. You stop feeling crushed when criticism shows up. You understand that feedback is information, not identity. It can be useful, but it doesn't get to decide who you are. You learn to accept compliments without becoming dependent on them, and to hear criticism without being destroyed by it. True self-worth is built in private. It's built when you keep your promises to yourself, even when nobody is watching. It's built when you do the right thing, not the popular thing. It's built when you show up on days when motivation is gone and excuses feel loud. Those moments don't get likes or applause, but they shape your character more than any public success ever could. There will be times when your effort goes unnoticed, times when your growth is slow and your progress isn't visible to anyone else. If your value depends on recognition, those seasons will break you. But if your value comes from within, those seasons will strengthen you. You'll understand that being unseen doesn't mean being insignificant. Seeds grow in the dark before they ever break the surface. When you truly believe in your value, you stop chasing attention and start attracting respect. You move differently. You speak with more certainty. You don't oversell yourself because you know what you bring to the table. And even when applause fades and opinions shift, your sense of worth remains steady because it was never borrowed from the outside to begin with. Self-belief is not something that suddenly appears when conditions are perfect. It is built slowly through silence, consistency, and discipline. Most people think confidence comes from loud wins, public recognition, or big moments, but the truth is, real belief is forged in the quiet routines no one claps for. It's what you do when nobody is checking on you, encouraging you, or reminding you of your goals. Those unseen moments are where your foundation is laid. Silence plays a powerful role in self-belief because it removes distraction. When you're constantly talking about your plans, you open the door to opinions that can weaken your resolve. Silence allows you to focus without interference. It protects your vision while it's still fragile. Not everything you're working on needs to be announced, and not everyone needs access to your journey. Moving quietly doesn't mean you lack confidence. It means you're secure enough to let your work speak later. Consistency is where belief becomes real. Anybody can feel confident on a good day. Anybody can feel motivated after hearing something inspiring. But confidence that lasts is built by showing up even when you don't feel like it. When you repeatedly take action, even small action, your brain starts to trust you. You prove to yourself that you are reliable. Each time you keep going instead of quitting, your belief strengthens, not because things got easier, but because you stayed committed. Discipline is the bridge between intention and identity. It's easy to say who you want to be, but discipline is what turns that idea into reality. When motivation fades, discipline keeps you moving. And every disciplined choice reinforces your self-belief. You begin to see yourself as someone who doesn't give up, someone who follows through. That self-image becomes powerful because once you believe you're consistent and disciplined, you act in alignment with that belief. There will be long periods where progress feels invisible. You'll be doing the work, but the results won't show up right away. This is where most people lose confidence, not because they're failing, but because they expect immediate proof. Silence teaches patience. Consistency teaches trust. Discipline teaches endurance. Together, they help you push through the phase where doubt is loud and evidence is quiet. Self-belief grows when you stop depending on mood. Feeling change daily, sometimes hourly. If you only act when you feel confident, your progress will always be unstable. Discipline removes emotion from the equation. You act because it's what you committed to doing, not because you feel inspired. Over time, that steady action creates real confidence, the kind that doesn't disappear when things get hard. The strongest belief is built when no one is watching. When you train yourself to work without praise, to improve without attention, and to continue without guarantees, you become internally strong. You don't need constant reassurance because you've seen what you're capable of in the quiet moments. And that kind of belief is unshakable because it was earned through discipline, reinforced through consistency, and protected through silence. Growth often requires walking alone and being misunderstood, and that's one of the hardest truths to accept on the path to becoming your best self. Most people want progress, but they also want company, approval, and understanding at every step. The problem is transformation rarely looks familiar to the people who only know the old version of you. When you start changing, you stop fitting into the boxes they're comfortable with, and confusion turns into criticism. Walking alone doesn't mean you hate people or think you're better than them. It simply means you're serious about where you're going. When you decide to grow, your priorities change. The things that once entertained you no longer satisfy you. The conversations that once felt normal start to feel draining. You begin to crave purpose over popularity, progress over comfort. And not everyone will understand that shift, especially those who benefit from you staying the same. Being misunderstood hurts because it feels unfair. People assume your intentions without asking. They judge your silence as arrogance and your focus as distance. They don't see the internal battles you're fighting or the discipline you're building. They only see that you're no longer available in the same way, and instead of respecting your growth, they question it. If you're not emotionally prepared for that, You'll either stop growing or stop pretending. Growth demands solitude because clarity is hard to find in noise. When you're constantly surrounded by opinions, expectations, and distractions, it's difficult to hear your own voice. Walking alone gives you space to think, to reflect, and to realign with your purpose. It allows you to make decisions based on values instead of pressure. That solitude can feel uncomfortable at first, but it's necessary. You can't become someone new while holding on tightly to everything old. There will be moments when you wish someone understood you, supported you, or encouraged you more openly. But those moments are also teaching you self-reliance. They're teaching you how to stand firm without applause and how to keep going without reassurance. That strength doesn't develop in crowds. It develops when you choose your future even when it costs you familiarity. People often misunderstand growth because it exposes